Beneath the eternal ice lies a world that never truly died. It waits there, silent, patient, suspended between life and death. What the frozen ground hides are not fossils turned to stone, but bodies, flesh, muscle, blood, and breath perfectly preserved in nature's cold embrace. These are creatures that once thundered across a living earth, the mammoths, the cave lions, the wolves, and even humans whose hearts once beat in the age of ice. For tens of thousands of years, glaciers acted as vaults of time, sealing away their stories in crystal layers of frost. Now, as the world grows warmer and the permafrost softens, those vaults are opening. One by one, the sleepers of the Ice Age are returning to light intact, haunting, almost alive. Their eyes still hold reflection, their fur still glimmers under the sun, and their DNA whispers secrets older than civilization itself. This is not resurrection, it is revelation. Within every drop of blood, within every strand of ancient hair, lies the code that could rewrite our understanding of extinction, adaptation, and survival. Each frozen body is more than a specimen. It is a question carved in ice. How did life endure when the planet was ruled by cold and shadow? And what will it mean for us now, as we awaken what nature meant to sleep forever? The silence beneath the ice is finally breaking. What rises from the frozen ground is not just the past, it is a mirror showing us who we were and warning us of who we might become. Because when the past begins to thaw, it doesn't simply return, it remembers. And in that memory it speaks. In the endless white silence of northern Siberia, along the windswept coast of Oyogos Yar in Yakutia, a small group of researchers stood staring at what seemed at first like a trick of the light. Half buried in the frozen soil lay the curve of something enormous, flesh, not stone. It was the summer of 2010, and the world was about to meet Yuka. She was a young, woolly mammoth, no taller than a man's shoulder, yet she would become one of the most complete Ice Age discoveries ever found. Her reddish-brown fur still clung to her small frame. Her eyes, astonishingly intact, seemed to glimmer under the cold Arctic sun, as if she had only just lain down to sleep. Inside her body, scientists found something even more miraculous: blood that was still liquid, circulating once again under human hands 39,000 years after it first flowed. But it wasn't just her preservation that stopped the world. Across her hind legs and jaw ran a series of deliberate, clean incisions, marks no predator could have made. These were the unmistakable cuts of a stone blade. Someone long before memory had touched Yuka. Whether they were early Homo sapiens or Neanderthals, their presence turned the discovery into something much greater than a frozen animal. It became proof that humans had ventured into these northern extremes far earlier than anyone believed, hunting or perhaps ritualizing the great beasts of the Ice Age. The time in which Yuka lived, known as the Kargin Interstadial, was a brief, warmer breath in an age of ice. Grasslands stretched where glaciers later formed, and herds of mammoths roamed beneath skies thick with migrating birds. It was a world balanced between survival and surrender, where climate shifted like the heartbeat of the earth itself. And in that fragile warmth, a moment of encounter occurred, one that linked the destinies of humans and mammoths forever. When scientists carefully thawed Yuka from her icy tomb, it was as if they were reopening a page history had closed too soon. Her skin told of cold winds and sharp tools. Her body told of adaptation and tragedy. Yet in her stillness, she seemed almost peaceful, as if aware that her death would serve a purpose beyond her time. Today, Yuka stands not only as a marvel of preservation, but as a messenger. Through her tissue, her DNA, and the precise lines of those ancient cuts, she bridges two eras, the world of instinct and the world of understanding. She reminds us that humanity's story did not begin with civilization, but with survival in the frozen dark. Yuka is not just a body trapped in ice. She is a frozen heartbeat, a moment when humans first touched legend and history itself stood still. 2,000 miles west of Yuka's resting place, in the remote wilderness of Yakutia, the ground opens into a scar so vast and deep that locals call it the gateway to hell. It is known to science as the Batagaika crater, a yawning wound where melting permafrost reveals the bones and sometimes the bodies of a world that time tried to forget. In 2018, from within that chasm, scientists uncovered a creature so perfectly preserved that it seemed to have fallen asleep only yesterday. It was a foal, a baby horse no more than 2 months old when it died. Its reddish mane still framed a slender neck, its tiny hooves curled beneath its frozen body. Beneath translucent skin, faint veins still traced their paths like rivers of memory. When researchers carefully inserted a needle into one of those veins, what emerged shocked the world. Liquid blood, still red, still fluid after 42,000 years. That single droplet became the oldest sample of blood ever recovered from an extinct animal. From it, scientists extracted DNA that told a story no one expected. This was Equus linensis, the Lena horse, neither ancestor nor descendant of any modern breed, but a lost branch of evolution, a road that nature once explored and then quietly abandoned. In its code lay genes for endurance and cold resistance traits sculpted for a brutal ice age that no longer exists. The discovery sparked a wave of fascination and controversy. Some researchers, including a South Korean team, even proposed the possibility of cloning the Lena horse, of bringing this forgotten lineage back to life. But others asked a harder question: just because we can, should we? The Lena foal's body rests today in a Siberian laboratory, its silent form reminding us that not every species is meant to return. Evolution is not a ladder, it's a web of choices of experiments written in blood and ice. And as we look into that crimson droplet still glistening after 42 millennia, one thought lingers like a pulse beneath the frost. If ancient blood can still flow, perhaps the memory of the earth never truly dies. Not far from the Lena River, where the ground seems to exhale ancient breath, the silence of the permafrost was broken once more. Between 2015 and 2017, along the Semiyuliak River in Yakutia, gold prospectors stumbled upon something far more valuable than treasure. Curled beneath layers of ice and soil lay two tiny shapes, their golden fur still gleaming after 28,000 years. They were lion cubs, perfectly preserved, impossibly intact. The world would come to know them as Sparta and Boris. When scientists carefully lifted them from the frozen ground, they found every detail of life untouched by decay. Soft pads still marked their paws. Whiskers framed their delicate faces. Beneath their small skulls, portions of brain tissue had survived something so rare in ancient mammals that even modern researchers held their breath. In the lab lights, the cubs seemed to sleep, their chests unmoving, yet their bodies whispered stories through every preserved cell. Sparta and Boris belonged to Panthera spelaea, the cave lion's apex predators that once ruled the mammoth steppes of the Ice Age. Larger and more muscular than their African cousins, they were engineered by evolution to thrive in cold, harsh climates. But the cubs had died before ever opening their eyes, perhaps buried in a sudden landslide or encased by floodwaters that froze overnight. Their short, unfinished lives became the most complete record of their kind. Through them, scientists now study the biology of extinct predators, their neural development, their muscle structure, even their genetic resilience to cold. These two cubs have become a time machine into the mind of a species long vanished, revealing not only how they lived, but how they disappeared. And yet, beyond the science lies something more human. Sparta and Boris remind us that history isn't always written by survivors. Sometimes it's told by those who never had a chance to live. They never took a breath, yet they allow us to breathe deeper into the past to feel its warmth, its fragility, its echo. On the ice where they sleep, the wind hums softly across their fur. Two small lions frozen before birth resting as the lullaby of time continues to play. From the same frozen wilderness that cradled mammoths and lions, another voice of the Ice Age began to stir, a voice that growled. Deep in the permafrost of Yakutia, scientists uncovered the body of a wolf pup so perfectly preserved that even her tiny eyelashes were still visible. Her fur was thick and golden grey, her muscles still firm beneath the skin. Inside her stomach, traces of her final meal, fish and small rodents, remained intact. Those fragments told a forgotten story that this land, now dry and severe, was once greener, wetter, alive with rivers and prey. This pup, no more than a few weeks old when she died, became a map of an ancient ecosystem frozen mid-breath. But she was not alone. Not far away, another wolf emerged from the ice, older, larger, and infinitely more haunting. This one was fully grown, her powerful jaws still open in a silent snarl. Her teeth gleamed beneath centuries of frost, and her tissue astonishingly showed almost no decay. Radiocarbon dating placed her at 44,000 years old, yet she looked as if she could still hunt beneath the pale Arctic sun. When researchers examined these wolves, all gave way to unease. Perfect preservation means more than beauty, it means containment. Within their cells may lie ancient bacteria and viruses, pathogens that have slept for tens of thousands of years. As global temperatures rise and the permafrost softens, these long-dormant organisms could awaken along with the bodies they once inhabited. In 2016, the world caught a glimpse of this danger when an outbreak of anthrax struck northern Siberia, traced back to the thawing carcass of a reindeer that had been frozen for decades. The Ice Age is whispering again, but not all whispers bring comfort. These wolves are more than relics, they are biological archives, holding not just genetic memory but microbial memory. What they carry could expand our understanding of evolution or remind us how fragile our own immunity truly is. The ice is opening its mouth to speak. Yet as it does, we must listen carefully, for not every story buried in the frozen ground is meant to be heard. High in the Italian Alps, at more than 10,000 feet above sea level, two hikers in 1991 stumbled upon what they first thought was a lost climber. Half buried in ice, the figure's skin was dark, leathery, and astonishingly intact. But this was no modern tragedy, it was a time capsule. The man in the glacier had been frozen for over 5,300 years. The world would come to know him as Ötzi the Iceman. When scientists began to study his body, they found themselves face to face with a living chapter of human history. Ötzi carried a copper axe, an object far ahead of his era, suggesting he lived at the dawn of metallurgy. Around his waist was a leather pouch filled with tools, a scraper, a drill, and flint blades worn from long use. His cloak was woven from grass fibers, his boots lined with fur and stuffed with dried moss for warmth. Every piece of him spoke of survival of a man who knew the mountains and their dangers. But it was his skin that told an even deeper story. Etched across his body were over 60 tattoos arranged along his spine, knees, and ankles. They weren't decorative. They aligned with known acupuncture points used today to relieve pain. Long before the word medicine existed, Ötzi's people may have practiced a form of therapeutic healing that bridged body and spirit. His final moments, though, were far less peaceful. An arrowhead lodged in his left shoulder had pierced a major artery. He likely bled to death within minutes, falling face first onto the snow that would entomb him for millennia. Modern DNA analysis revealed even more a genetic tendency toward heart disease, traces of Lyme infection, and the presence of Helicobacter pylori, a bacterium still found in our stomachs today. Through him we glimpse both our ancient origins and our enduring fragility. Ötzi didn't just die in the ice, he lives again through it. He connects the world of beasts and men of instinct and intellect. From mammoths to wolves to humans, the ice holds not only bodies, but blueprints of life itself, a frozen record of how we came to be. The ice does not choose what it keeps. Beneath its frozen weight lie both giants and the smallest of survivors, each preserved with equal care, as if nature itself refused to forget even the quietest lives. In the tundra of Yakutia, scientists uncovered the body of a young woolly rhinoceros barely 2 years old when it died. Its thick hide was still intact, its tiny horn just beginning to form a promise of the strength it would never grow to wield. Inside its stomach, researchers found fragments of moss, lichen, and tundra grass still recognizable after tens of thousands of years. From those remains, we learned what these colossal grazers once fed, upon how they adapted to the brutal cold, and perhaps why they vanished when the climate shifted. The young rhino's body is more than a relic. It is a frozen textbook of evolution, revealing how life builds defenses and how even the mightiest can fall when the balance breaks. Yet beside these titans of the Ice Age rests a creature no larger than a man's hand, an Arctic ground squirrel curled within its burrow as if still dreaming. Unearthed from the permafrost, its nest was perfectly preserved, a small circular chamber lined with fir grass and carefully hoarded seeds. Each seed was placed with precision, a pattern of instinctual order that speaks of intelligence written not in words but in survival. This tiny creature outwitted extinction, not through power but through preparation. Its story reminds us that the measure of endurance is not size, it is foresight. In the hierarchy of survival, wisdom often wins where strength fails. Today, the preserved DNA of both the woolly rhino and the Arctic squirrel offers scientists new insight into the genes that once made cold survivable. Those same genes may help us protect endangered species facing our planet's next great thaw. In this way, the dead of the Ice Age still guide the living of the Anthropocene. The ice has no favorites. It keeps the mighty and the meek alike, each one a note in the long song of survival. And when it finally melts, it releases not just fossils but lessons. Every discovery, Yuka's frozen blood, the Lena horse's scarlet veins, the sleeping lions, the wolves, the rhino, even the tiny squirrel is a fragment of a much larger picture. Together they form a mosaic of warning and wonder. As Earth warms, the ice retreats, and from its depths the past begins to stir. Each body that rises is both a revelation and a question. What else lies beneath? What stories has the planet sealed away, waiting for us to uncover or to unleash? Nowhere is this more visible than in the Batagaika crater, the so-called gateway to hell. There, the melting permafrost yawns wider each year, devouring forests and spitting out relics of prehistory. It is both a scientific goldmine and a wound that will not heal. The deeper the ground collapses, the further back in time we fall into a world of mammoths, cave lions, and unknown microbes that once ruled a colder Earth. Science races to meet this moment. In 2024, researchers achieved something once thought impossible: the full reconstruction of a 52,000-year-old woolly mammoth chromosome, revealing the most detailed genetic map of an extinct species ever created. It was a triumph of technology and a reminder that as our knowledge deepens, so does our responsibility. We are learning to read the code of extinction even as we write our own. Because what is happening now has happened before. The Ice Age ended not with fire but with warmth, a slow rise in temperature that unraveled entire ecosystems. Today, that same pattern unfolds again, but this time the trigger is us. The melting of ancient ice is more than a geological event. It is a mirror reflecting what happens when balance is broken. We are standing at the edge of two timelines, their end and our beginning. As the silence beneath the ice gives way to sound, we must listen not with fear but with understanding. Every creature that returns from the cold carries a message about resilience, loss, and consequence. Because the past isn't gone, it's waking up. And in its awakening, it asks us the question we can no longer ignore: what will we leave behind for those who come after the thaw? Subscribe to Prehistoric Shadows, where the past isn't dead, it's waking up.